My daughter attends a public kindergarten located in a suburb of a large metropolis in the South. You got all that? You get those coordinates?
Somewhere in Alabama.
Ooh. Good. Her teacher refers to herself as Mrs. Smith.
How original.
I would much prefer to use the title Ms. and teach my children to do the same. I consider Mrs. and Miss, M-I-S-S, to be outdated and sexist. Regardless of how I address the teacher in notes and emails, Miss Smith or her first name, she consistently refers to herself as Mrs. Smith in her replies.
But she's not married?
I don't think so. That's what I don't get. I brought this in because like I as a kid I always fuck these up. I always mix them up because like
Mrs. means you're married.
Why do women have 3 options?
Miss.
There's Miss MS and then there's MISS.
So there's Ms.
And then MRSS. Ms. Miss.
So Ms. would be like
Mrs.
my mom who has her maiden name but is married. Ms. Inch. So she's not Mrs. Heb or she's not Mrs. Inch. She's Ms. Inch.
But you can also be Mrs. and then your original last name, right?
No.
So if you keep your last name, you refer to yourself as Ms.
Yep.
I thought it's just if you're married, you just become Mrs. for anything.
Nope. Because it doesn't.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I don't know.
Because if I was Mrs. Heb, people would be like, "Oh, you like your husband
married
is
someone's
Mr. Heb."
Heb.
I'd be like, "Mr. Heb's my dad," and they'd be like, "What? You married your dad?"
I guess that's how it works.
Do you know my drunk alter ego? I discovered is Mr. Heb.
What do you mean?
Like when I get drunk, the person I become is Mr. Heb.
Like your dad?
I don't become my dad. I just become some man named Mr. Heb. I think. You know, like Beyonce's like Sasha Fierce when she performs. I'm Mr. Heb when I drink.
How should I refer to this teacher? Can I continue to call her Miss when talking about her with my daughter? Is it rude to call her Miss either to her or in discussions about her?
Can you go back and tell me like what her issue is with this? Because this is such a non-issue. Like, what the fuck? She's so bored.
What does it say? I consider Mrs. and Ms. to be outdated and sexist. Is it outdated?
Mrs. and Ms. What do you want to call her? Like Sherry? Like, I don't understand.
Let's see.
Mrs. and Miss, I guess.
When she has made her own preference clear by example, she has not directly asked me to do otherwise. If it is relevant, she is only a couple years out of school and just got married. I get the impression she's proud of her newly acquired last name and honorific. Signed, Ms. Mom.
You need to call people what they want to be called. It's not hard. If you want it to be called
G-Money.
No, that's the one exception. If you want it to be called Gatorade. Mrs. Gatorade.
Didn't you used to do stand-up? Didn't you used to be funnier than this?
I was never funnier than this.
Here's my thing. I saw a great video on Instagram recently where it's a kid walking around his school filming his teacher's reactions and he calls them by their first names. It's very funny.
That is funny.
It was fucking hilarious because like their reactions were outrageous.
What'd they do?
Andrew, like all the like very taken aback by it. But I feel like we should be calling teachers by their first names because like here's the thing: you go, sir, yes, sir, right in the military. You know, you go home, you call your parents mom and dad, right? Yeah. It's only when you get into like weirdly, I don't know.
I don't
shouldn't
think
have
I'd call anybody Mr. something.
Yeah, why the fuck should you have to be like, oh, Mr. Simpson, oh, Mr. L, oh, Mrs. Gregory? Like, I should be calling you Janet. Janet, I need help. You know, I don't like this idea that
Imagine
like
if someone called you Mr. Belichick.
I would knock them out. I'd be like, you call me by that's my great grandpa's name, okay? I don't know. It just seems it's such a formal thing for such an informal setting.
You know, when people call me Miss Heb, it feels very, like, degrading almost.
Yeah, right. It feels like
Miss Heb. I'm like, fuck you.
You're supposed to, like...
It's Mr. Heb.
I feel like you're going to, like, slap a kid's hand with a ruler if you call them, like, Mr. or Miss, you know? Yeah. Like, oh, no, there's Miss Heb. She's a real bitch, you know?
They wouldn't be wrong.
Exactly. I say, call them by the first names. Let's all get on a more friendly thing, you know?
It's 2019.
Yeah.
We should all be cash. We should all be buds.
But you can never go
legal.
You can never go wrong with a mister, though. That's what I love about it. Dear Miss Mom, call her what she wants to be called, which is obviously Mrs. Smith. I sympathize with you. I am married but did not change my last name, and I am Ms. Hallbrook in my classroom. Many students assume Ms. is the same as Miss, so every year I explain what Miss means and why I use it. At the same time, people's names are important to them. Disregarding her preferred name probably does not feel like respect to Mrs. Smith. Talk about names with your daughter. Explain why you prefer Miss, but dislike Miss. This is going to be killer.
And also, explain to your child that you should respect what people want to be called.
Yeah, just call them whatever gets me out of class faster. It's a fucking hellhole that you have to stay in for 8 hours a day, and that they have to deal with this bullshit amongst the parents and stuff.
Oh, I know.
Jeez, they have no idea what these kids are going through in those classes, man. It's so fucking boring in there.
Man, my friend's brother's teaching at a private school, and he's like, it's great, except for the parents.
Bro, I would be terrified if I was a teacher, because back in the day, you get a call from the teacher, you're like, oh, the fuck did you do wrong? Yeah. What the fuck did you do in school today? Now, the parents are calling the teachers. What did you do in school today? What did you put them on timeout?
Why are parents so wienery? One was like, apparently said to him, she was like, my son isn't doing well and I think he needs extra help. And my friend who's the teacher was like, well, I offer extra help every morning and he's more than welcome to come in. And she goes, yeah, well, Billy's not really a morning person.
Oh,
I'd be like, get the fuck out of bed, Billy. Like,
I'm so glad you said that, because it's like, same thing with fucking university kids, where it's like, well, I have office hours. I've spin class then. Jesus Christ. Just go to office hours. Make time for it. These people aren't here to serve you on hand and foot 24 hours a week.
Oh, you're such a responsible young man.
Do you know what helicopter parents are?
Yeah.
It's the idea that we should just throw all parents up into a fucking helicopter. If you feel strongly enough, you would bring this up with Mrs. Smith, but it might come off as patronizing, and I doubt very much that she would change her title afterward. And please don't call a teacher by his or her first name unless explicitly invited to do so. You probably wouldn't refer to your dentist by her first name. Show teachers the same professional courtesy. Signed, Ms. Hallbrook, Slate. Fuck that. I call my dentist whatever I want. I'm paying them.
So much money.
Oh, dude. I want your middle name. I'll call you by your middle name, you know?
Francis?
I was at the dentist the other week, actually.
Good for you.
First time in like a year and a half.
Not bad.
No cavities, bruh.
Hey.
And I forgot to ask them something, because like I was there and I'm like, all right. Because like I don't know if professions have to take the history of their professions, because I was going to ask them some history dental questions.
That's a fun idea.
Because think about it. Like, bro, how much did you spend for your PhD to like...
And no one ever asks you about the invention of dentistry.
There's 32 teeth and you do the same thing to each and every tooth. You can learn that in a week and a half. I want to know. I was going to ask them, like, did people just have permanently fucked up teeth beyond 100 years ago? Like, did absolutely no one have regular teeth? Because
wooden teeth.
According to like dentists, you go a week without brushing and they're going to fall out. You don't floss, you're going to look like a goddamn troll.
This whole like you have to go get them cleaned every 6 months is utter bullshit.
I asked them that. I said, because they wanted to give me x-rays. And I'm like, I don't want, how to know to get x-rays? Because it feels like every time I go, you're giving me x-rays just to like get $300, $200 out of my fucking pocket, you know? And she's like, well, you should do them like once a year so you can like track your cavities and stuff. But like, man, just check with your fucking eyeballs. It feels like I never got x-rays back in the day. Then all of a sudden I get x-rays every time I go now.
Teeth are like in your head and like, you know, when there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, I'll tell you when I feel something's messed up. It's like, here's what I feel like dentistry should be like. You should have a family dentist where if you're one of those like, you know, whack job families, it's like you go every month, go every 6 months, go whatever the fuck you want, you know, like a family dentist. And then there's the people like you and I who are like, we'll go when we feel an ailment. We'll go when we feel like we're
not proactive healthcare.
Yeah. Like if my knee hurts, I'll wait like 2 weeks before being like, okay, I should probably check this out.
You're pretty bad at that.
How do we get here? I don't know.
Mrs. Smith, calling your dentist.
Oh, right. Yeah, call them whatever you want.